mid-June and you are still working on your social media efforts. This is a form of professional development, and you just get to listen and learn. And I'm so excited for you to meet Erica Chandler, APR, out of the St. Louis, Missouri area. The work that she's doing at Afton schools is amazing. It's a district of about 2,600 students. She's a solo shop. She's doing big things, telling big stories, and she's going to share her story, how it all got started from just a volunteer position as a parent in the district. It's exciting little story. She really shares a great story of how to consistently tell and celebrate your school districts with social media. But we're going to dive deep today on a user-generated content strategy. She calls it #Afton around the world. And we're going to break down exactly how she sets up that program, how she gets submissions in all summer long from her students and staff on what they're doing over the summer. And it's a really cool concept that you may be able to take and morph and implement yet this summer. We're also going to break down the importance of networking and getting involved with other school communicators. So you're not going to want to miss this. Now, if you are looking for some specific training around social media for schools, don't miss out on our boot camp. Okay, we've still got a few spots left for our July episode or our July session. So it starts in just a few weeks. But you got to get signed up now and grab those last few spots. This is a 5-week virtual program. It's a very low cost, $395 per person, and it is going to get you set up for success for social media storytelling within your school or district. The next session is not happening until November, guys, November of this year. So you want to get signed up now. It's a great program. If you can just devote about 3 to 5 hours a week, you're going to be perfect to be able to maximize this program. So get signed up now, socialschoolforedu.com. Just head over to services and boot camp. We've also got a direct link in the show notes to get signed up. So let's get into this week's K-12 PR tip before you get to meet Erica Chandler. Hey guys, our quick tip today is, do you have any social media ambassadors, people that are helping you with social media at each of your school buildings? If you've got specific folks that are doing that for you, summer is a great time to book either a virtual or an in-person session to give them the tips and tricks and strategies to really maximize that. You guys remember, if you can attract or retain just one student, it's thousands of dollars back for your school, but you have to invest in the best practices and training those people, making sure they understand what works with social media when it comes to schools. So I really encourage you, book 2 hours of training time with them for this summer. We've got some great tools in our membership program that you can just turn around and use to develop your team. But I actually do personal training sessions with teams of social media storytellers. So if you are interested in having me help you out, just email me, Andrea@socialschoolforedu.com. We can talk a little bit about pricing and scheduling that. It's awesome. You have the tools where you could probably train them, but sometimes you don't have the time. And sometimes it's nice to hear from someone else. And so my training is completely customizable to your school or district, to exactly your policies and how you're doing things. And so it might be a great option for you. But if not, book the time, schedule some time. What makes a good post? How to grab good photos, right? How to interact with comments that are coming in and the importance of that. How to get more stories from your staff. Those are the types of things that you need to be encouraging these, social media ambassadors to do better so that you can do a better job for your school or district as a whole. So I hope that little tip helps. I hope that you're able to book those training times with those folks. Now let's get into a really exciting feature that you could implement this summer with Erica Chandler. Hello, Erica. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to have you, Erica. I can't even believe you haven't been a guest yet.
I've snuck by.
You have. Well, it's because I have had you featured in trainings in my membership group. And so sometimes all of that blends together. But for those listeners that have no idea who the ever wonderful Erica Chandler is, why don't you share your background and kind of your, role there with Afton School District there in St. Louis, Missouri?
Yeah, so I'm Erica Chandler, APR, Director of Communications for Affton School District. So we're just outside of St. Louis City. So a suburban district. We have about 2,600 students pre-K 12, which is small for our area, but we're this nice little pocket of, well, hopefully mostly happiness in Afton around St. Louis. So I have been here for 10 years. I am currently president of Missouri School PR Association, so MOSPRA, and have really enjoyed this next phase of my career. So prior to this, I spent over 10 years in entertainment and concert marketing at the Fox Theater, and then did concerts at one of the amphitheaters around town too.
That's such a cool job that you had.
It was, and I loved it until it was really hard to care about selling tickets. And that was about the time that my oldest was entering school.
Okay.
And have I never told you this story?
No.
So yeah, he was going to go to kindergarten, and we really thought we were going to move to the district next door, because you heard so much about them and you really heard nothing about Afton. They didn't have anyone in communications. And so after I dropped Milo off on his first day of kindergarten, I went to the superintendent's. At that point, it was like the boohoo or woohoo breakfast for kindergarten parents. And it was the superintendent's first day, like first official school day. And I don't know why. This is not typically me, but I just went up. I was like, hey, I'm Erica Chandler. I'm a new parent in the district. And I don't know if you need help with communications, but I think you might need help with communications. So how can I volunteer and help you? And that's how it started.
I think you have told me that. Okay, first of all, I got to go back. It was the boohoo or the woohoo of like a breakfast for kindergarten parents.
It was. I don't even think the school has it still, but
I love that, because you're right. Like some people are really excited and some people are crying, and maybe it's a mixture of both. Yeah. But you just like said, hey, I see a need here, because you weren't hearing a lot as a parent. So no. You just said, hey, and you didn't ask for a job at that point. You just said, how can I volunteer to help? And so how did it get started?
It actually started with social media. So the district didn't have a Facebook presence. A couple of the schools were on Facebook, but not very well. So establishing a social media presence for the district and each of the schools. And then probably a few months later, I became like a freelance or contract employee, and we tackled the website at that point. And then we thought we were going to do that for another year, but the board decided they thought a director of communications position would be valuable. So by the next year, I was hired. It's been a ride since then.
Yes, that is awesome. And then obviously your experience in marketing and I mean, all of that experience you were able to put to the school, but now it mattered more than ticket sales. These were the lives and the futures of these children and these students. And so you've obviously fallen in love with it. You've had continued success, and we'll talk a little bit about your activity with the Missouri School of Public Relations Association chapter there. So you said you started basically as a volunteer for social media. Is that right?
I did.
Okay. So how today, 10 years later, how does social media fit into your role for your school district of 2,600 students?
It's daily, right? So I talk a lot to our staff about how if they have a classroom social media account, and for the most part, all of our elementary teachers do, and many of our middle school, high school is a little more hit and miss, but really that is the one window into their classroom every single day for parents, for grandparents, for distant family members or friends, even our community. And I know they have a lot of former parents who stay on their pages and like to see what's happening after their kids move on from the classroom. So it's really just the number one way to tell our story every single day.
Yeah. And so you have staff members doing kind of their own pages.
Mhm.
What pages do you run for on behalf of the district right now?
So we do Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter from
Okay.
the district level. Then each of our schools also has Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, but they are in charge of their own school.
Okay.
This next year, I'm excited. I just got approved digital media coordinators for each school. So I'm really hoping to extend that reach and storytelling in a more consistent way at each building, at each level.
Okay. And are those positions going to have a small stipend
They
associated with it?
they are. They are. So that's super exciting.
And will they also be helping with the website and social media or just one?
Both,
Okay.
both.
Awesome. And how many schools do you have?
We have 5 total,
Okay.
preschool through high school.
All righty. And I'm imagining this summer, then you're going to be getting with those folks to give them
Mhm.
some training, some tools, maybe even a little swag, Erica, because I've been to different, groups, and it's like they have a little jacket or something. I don't know if you can do that, but
I
it's
love that.
it's kind of fun to they're in the club and they are official. So that's great. So I've got other things to talk about. We'll probably have to schedule another podcast, but I know that getting that type of position at each school is so helpful. So when you are doing let's go back to your district accounts. You've got Facebook,
Yep.
you've got Instagram, you've got Twitter. And you're one person,
Mhm.
but you've got all these little storytellers all over. So how do you determine what ends up going onto your district channels?
So for the most part, I schedule my social media content ahead of time.
Mhm.
Um, and then I will browse through schools and classrooms to see what they've been sharing, and we'll sometimes pick up here or there. But it's hard to find the time to go through all of them. So that's why I'm super hopeful for these coordinators at each school. They might have more time to look through what their teachers are posting and share out more consistently, and then I'll catch it from there if it seems to. Um, I don't know that I have a process. It's really just, if you look at an image or a photo and you get that feeling, like if you just smile or that's really interesting, whatever it is, that emotional reaction, that's when I tend to take it onto the district level as well.
Okay. And do you get content that people submit to you in some ways of saying, "Hey, this is something, could you share this out on our social media channel?"
I do. Typically, it takes me asking for people to submit, like for the last day of school, or we did a community day of service across our district in May, and I'll ask for photos from that as well.
Okay.
So I try to limit it to event-based, or it doesn't even just have to be an event. Even if it's like World Kindness Day or whatever the day is, and I was looking for some content, I'll reach out and ask for help.
Okay. That's perfect. You have to, because you can't do it all on yourself.
No.
So it's summer right now. It's summer 2022, and we're feeling a little bit different than we have had to feel the last few summers. And you have had a really successful campaign with your Afton around the world. And so I'd love for you to kind of describe what made this program come about and kind of describe what it is for our listeners.
Sure. So Afton Around the World has been around for, gosh, at least 5 summers. And I will credit Jill Filer here in Missouri for the idea, where we ask families and staff to share a photo with us if they go someplace or if they do something fun. You don't even have to leave the St. Louis area. You don't even have to leave your backyard to have fun. So we frame it as Afton Around the World. So here's the little caption that we use, that you're welcome to use as well. But as you head out on vacations, staycations, day trips, or other summer fun, send us your pictures, bonus points if you're wearing Afton gear, and we'll share them with our community. So we kind of leave it open-ended. You don't have to have a grand vacation or a grand trip to be part of Afton around the world.
Okay. So you are putting that out in a post, and we're going to give that, the one you just read, we're going to specifically share with
Perfect.
everybody. So you guys check out the show notes of this podcast. And we're actually going to also be publishing a blog with this information as well. But check out the show notes so you can see exactly how Erica's reading that. And we were talking a little bit earlier. It's really good to be able to say whether you go somewhere or you're staying and you're doing something, because of equity. And, it's not like you have to head to Florida or head to Mexico or, whatever. Really nice if you're wearing your Afton gear, right?
It is. And for the first couple of years, I tried to limit it to only if you were wearing Afton gear, but I ended up getting so many photos without, it wasn't worth it. And not everyone has Afton gear, to be honest. A lot of people do, but it shouldn't be a limiting factor. So
yeah, that's another equity thing too, right? Like, so don't limit it to that. Okay. So you're asking for folks to submit photos and maybe a little story of what they're up to over the summer.
Yep.
And that gives you content all summer long. Do you put it just on Facebook, or are you posting those out on Instagram and Twitter as well?
I post to all three platforms.
Okay.
It is a goal of mine to diversify what I'm posting where, but right now it goes to all three.
Yeah, well, it's good content because summer is not as heavy as, maybe you have summer school. So there's some weeks that you have more content to share. But this is something that we call user generated content. So it's your followers that are basically creating content for you to then share. So my first question is, how do they get the pictures to you, Erica? How do you collect them from them?
So 2 different ways. Typically, we ask them to be sent to our communications email address. So that general email address that just goes into an inbox separate from mine. Or they can also DM or PM photos to the district account on whatever platform they're on if they want to do that. I have found sometimes it's harder to find them on DM, but I just try to make sure that I'm looking every single day to see if anything else has populated.
Okay, so you're giving them 2 options. And if you only want to use email, just use email, guys, because not everybody has your direct messaging turned on. And how many submissions do you get each summer, Erica? Do you have any estimate?
So it usually starts slow, although this year I've already gotten 2. And so this is our last day of school was just a few days ago on Friday. And so now it's the Tuesday after Memorial Day. So I already have 2 submissions. And so it starts usually where I can post, maybe not at 1 every day, but pretty close. But by about end of July or end of June into July and then into August, it's where you have enough to post at least 2 a day, sometimes in August, 3 a day, because people are trying to get them in and make sure that they are on the site as well. So it really just depends, there is no rhyme or reason, but I also try to not post them as soon as I get them. This is me personally doing that. You don't have to do this. I just always worried, like, what if they're on vacation and someone sees that? What if they're not home yet? So I try to give it a little space.
Okay, that's something good to think of, right? So, I often am posting way too much, and we know Big Brother is always watching too. So it's just like, you got to be careful of that. But that's mindful. And also it's just like, we never promise that it's kind of like, watch the page and, we're going to share this soon. Cause do you try to communicate back to whoever submitted it and say, thank you, this, I'll be sharing this soon. So watch our pages.
Yes, I do. Because if you don't do that, then they will think you didn't get it.
Okay. Yes. So that's very important. You complete the loop. Have you ever had to say no to any pictures? Like, so I'm just thinking about, because I'm a mom of 2 teenage girls, sometimes the swimsuits they wear, so I mean, I'm assuming you try to be cognizant of dress code type things of, and maybe just asking, hey, do you have a different picture? Have you ever had to do that?
Or artful cropping.
Okay. That's true.
I've done both of those.
Okay.
There was also a time last year. So typically get the submission, they'll tell me who the student is, but I'll go ahead and look up in our student information system because I like to put the grade level. I typically do the grade level they'll be in next school year. They finished 5th grade. Now they're going to be a 6th grader, and tag the school with the grade for the student. Always first name, last initial, not a full name.
Okay.
Unless there have been times where it's a group and it's like alumni included with younger siblings. Sometimes if it's a big family like that, I'll do the family name. But I tend to only do first name, last initial.
Okay, that's important because that was one question I was going to ask.
Mhm.
So, we are careful about first and last names, identifying. I like it that you're tying it back to what grade they're going to be in, what school they're entering, because again, it just brings it all back to the school. Now, what kind of engagement are you seeing on these types of posts when you're sharing them? Do you get a lot of comments or shares, or what kind of engagement?
Not really. I'd say it's consistent. It doesn't, this is not like a showstopper. This is
Okay.
really just that summer evergreen content that you can keep posting. And it will get some likes depending on how many people know them, or if they share it out, it will get more engagement. But it's not a huge generator of engagement.
Okay, but I can see it. Okay, so we know that the more engagement you get, the more reach you get, and that's good for your school, right? Because your stories are gonna reach more people. But there's something to be said about the personal engagement that you're getting with each of these families
Yeah,
that is tying back to the school, that they're feeling like, hey, I'm on vacation and it's summer, but I'm still thinking about the school. So, we always talk public relations. You think about all the big ways we communicate, but when it comes back to it, it's all those personal relationships, right, that we build. And so it is a way of developing those. So I think it is a strong opportunity, and it's not that hard to run, right? I mean, it doesn't take a
absolutely
ton of
not.
your time.
No, absolutely not. Typically, when we get into the swing of it, I'll schedule them once a week and then
Okay.
that far out and then hit the next week. If I'm starting to see more and more come in, then it might be twice a day rather than once a day. And back to your point, Andrea, I mean, you will see former teachers comment like, it's so good to see you. So those connections are vital. I actually think that's probably more important than the feature itself.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. What other kind of content are you sharing over the summer, Erica, that you could share with our listeners? Because it's not as frequent as
Mhm.
the regular school year, and some people can get nervous. So I'm always saying, hey, if you can try to post once a day, that's a really good goal. And obviously, what you're telling me with this is this almost reaches that.
It does.
But what other kind of summer post ideas or information, or whatever, what are you going to be sharing?
So we do have summer school for a
Okay.
month. So that starts next week. I'll try to post some of that. I do try to do like, if you have any capital improvement projects or even like new classroom furniture, honestly, even when you get closer to the school year starting, a picture of shiny floors, it might
Yes.
sound silly, but that goes such a long way. And just kind of showing what our staff is doing around the district during the summer too, because we might not have school, but we're still hard at work doing things. So sometimes I think summer is hard because you don't have all of that content all the time. You have to kind of go search for it. But honestly, between Afton Around the World and then the other little pieces that come in during the week, that's pretty much takes care of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. So, and we're also going to link up all of your social channels here as well.
Great.
So, you guys can kind of follow Erica, see what she's sharing in her district of 2,600 students. It is all right to give yourself a little breather. But if you are working, all summer, and you have people there, I think that is a good idea to give them, those things of what the summer
Well,
staff is doing. And then I'm assuming as it hits July, you are starting to share some back to school registrations, or,
yep,
some of those that, yes, they're more informational, but we need to get them out there. And so I'm assuming that you do that as well.
absolutely. So really trying to about August 1st is when I try to switch back to school, and we'll post a little informational tidbit several times a week, whether it's that last push for online registration, because that's how they get assigned a bus. That's going to be my twist this year, to try to boost engagement for online registration that you have to do every year. So if you want to request transportation, get it in. But even school supplies or open houses or the hours for the school, it can be really anything that's back to school related.
Yeah, absolutely. And you always do a great job of wonderfully branding everything. And I love it because you have purple. So
Right?
so social school for EDU, you love all of our purple stuff. So
Absolutely.
that's
Yeah,
good.
Canva is my best friend. That's for sure. That's
Yes.
for sure. And actually, speaking of which, I wanted to mention I'm trying something new this year on Afton Around the World, and I created a little logo that I'm going to try to watermark on each picture if I can fit it in, just as one more way to brand what we're doing on our sites.
I love it. Cool. So everybody's going to be able to check that out as well.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for kind of walking through this with us. I think, you probably started it out, didn't know that it'd be a 5-year, recurring thing, but it's kind of nice that people can look forward to it. And it's awesome that you get so many submissions. Again, it's building those personal relationships. So whatever you want to call yours, and whether it's, something around the world, or, what are you doing on your summer vacation? Take what Erica has shared. There's other schools that have done this as well, and make it your own. And it could be a great, engagement piece. I think. Any other tips for somebody just starting out with this that you would share, Erica?
I mean, I don't think there's a wrong way to do this.
Right.
So I think I would hesitate to, but like we mentioned, like, let's see how far we can go. I would hesitate really pointing out like who's the farthest.
Yeah.
I would just let it sort of naturally happen, and people will recognize it. I mean, one summer we had somebody in China, like, I don't know how or why, but I think that probably is the furthest we've ever gone, and people do remember that.
Right.
So
And another spin on this, just if you're thinking about, oh, I don't know about, where people are traveling to, some folks are doing like, where are you reading? And so it could be just, and really to promote reading over the summer, it could just be a little other twist on it. But again, you're asking for those photos of, and I love it when you get kids that are reading to like their pet goat, or they're like underneath the slide and they're reading their book, or whatever it might be. But there are different ways to kind of put your own spin on this. And again, you're getting pictures, and some of them are probably really good pictures, so they are worthy of putting on like your Instagram page, right? Where a lot of times maybe over the summer you don't have a lot of those photos to share. So I just think it's a great idea. I want you to think about it. It's something not too late. We're mid-August already when this is going to be releasing, but it's not too late to try this year too, if you want. So that's awesome. So Erica, just kind of as we wrap up, you are really well connected. You are the current president of MOSPRA, which is incredible. You've been in a lot of other roles, I think, within that organization. They certainly are, I think, your second family. And then, of course, we've got NSPRA. But just how important is it, would you say to our listeners, is it for that networking, for, getting involved in some of those organizations and, other school communicators just like you? Why is that important?
Yeah, it's everything, to be honest. I have never seen a more giving or open association, either at the state level or at the national level, than school PR. I think admire and acquire is what we call it, right? So I'm certainly not the smartest person in the room, but you can recognize when something is impactful, and then try to figure out, how does that work in my district, and then make it your own. And you know what, if you need a template, if you need an idea, then that's the network to reach out to. I guarantee there will be multiple people that would answer and say, here's a resource for you, or here's a template in Canva for you. So it's everything, especially as a one-person shop. You can't do it all on your own.
Right. Absolutely. And we love those in-person spots. Of course, you're part of our membership group that is a virtual, connection spot. But what I love, and I'm continually meeting folks that aren't necessarily a school communicator, but they're maybe an assistant principal or they're a library media specialist, and they've got some connection to social media for their
Mhm.
district. But many small schools are growing and they see the need for school communications. So what I love is I love to be able to introduce them to a state chapter, to the national seminar that's happening here in
Mhm.
July that you and I will be at. Those are so important, and they truly are, I'd say, life changing. I think that the relationships that I've made and the people that I can call friends and that I can literally pick up the phone if my district, one of my schools is in a crisis, like those are life changing relationships that make my whole entire life better. Don't you agree?
Oh, 1,000%. 1,000, just to be able to text when you're having your 19th lockdown of the year or something crazy has happened. I think in April and May, we had 4 Thursdays in a row with an emergency dismissal at our high school. None of them their fault, but like sewer backup and water main break and power outage. So on that fourth one, I'm like texting. Can you believe it? Because I can't believe it. So really just that outlet of someone who gets what's happening. Even if it's not happening to them, they understand. That's invaluable.
Right. Absolutely. So as we wrap up, what would you say is your best, social media tip for our listeners?
For me, it's planning ahead, making sure that I have posts scheduled. And that's just the way my brain works. That's how I work. I have many friends who that doesn't work for them. They have to post on the fly. It's more organic for them. But that doesn't work for me because then I'll forget. So I get too busy with something else to remember to go back and do it. So for me, it's really, I have an editorial calendar. I know it's been shared before. And Andrea, you're welcome to share the link again. Just staying on track and making sure that I have content scheduled every single week. And while ideally I'd like to do that once a week, that doesn't happen. I mean, I'll try to schedule ahead of time several days. And then if something comes up, I'll go and do a second post or a third post, whatever it is for the day, to get it arranged in a time where I know it'll be seen.
Yeah. Well, it really lets you be in control of social media instead of
Yeah.
social media controlling you. And I think it often is, sometimes it can be challenging and very stressful, Erica. For example, all of us just went through graduation,
Mhm.
and that used to be such a stressor for me because I'm waiting to get pictures because I'm not,
Mhm.
with schools we serve, we're not there taking the pictures. So I'm waiting to get pictures, and then I'm stressed out about, getting those out right away.
Mhm.
And this year I just decided, okay, I want to get a picture of all the graduates, which remember, we can do that because we only have 23 of them usually around that. So I can get a full picture of them in one post and then say, we're going to next week we'll share more photos of graduation. But
Mhm.
then I'm not sitting on my Memorial Day weekend stressed about getting pictures out on social media when I should be like relaxing with my family. But just knowing, like, having that plan ahead of time gives you some sense of work-life harmony and all of that. Don't you think?
Absolutely. Yes, and I'm stealing that idea for next year because I absolutely took the weekend of graduation to post an album one night and then an album of caps the next. I didn't need to do that.
Yeah,
You're
and you
right.
had beautiful pictures, by the way, because your stuff shows
Thank
up
you.
on mine because I follow Afton's page. And believe me, you guys, that's another great social media tip. Every week you're meeting awesome, school social media storytellers. Follow their pages and you'll get really good ideas. But yeah, it's like, let's give ourselves grace. Let's do one post and then just say there's going to be more coming later. Because what I hate is I get a few, but then I'm leaving a lot of other people out. And so it's like, I just want to wait until I get it all. But sometimes we're so like, oh my God, it's got to be in the moment. This is what I'm eating for supper tonight. It's like, no, nobody really cares. Like, you can wait. So I love it. And I think I shared your concept of an editorial calendar a little bit in a blog. So if I'm remembering right, I'm going to give a link to that blog, which also shares the link to your editorial calendar. I'm not as quite as organized as you when it comes to that, but I am organized in the fact of like already having Throwback Thursdays scheduled out, my student features and my, staff features, and getting those scheduled out. Like I've got them already scheduled out through the end of July. And I feel so awesome about my summer. That is
That
really
is
good.
awesome.
Yeah. So it's just a good feeling. All right, Erica, now everybody wants to be your BFF as well. So what is the best way to stay connected to you?
I think social media. I'm in your group, Andrea, as well as the school communications pros discussion page. I'm on both of those regularly. So that's probably the easiest. Twitter is Erica J. Chandler. You can find me there too.
Okay. And would you mind, could I give people your email just in case they
Sure.
have questions?
Oh, 1000%.
Okay, so on the show notes, we're going to have her Twitter account. We're going to have her email there. You can definitely reach out if you've got additional questions. So fun to talk to you, Erica. I can't, looking at your face, like,
Thanks.
okay, we record this. We're on YouTube as well. But getting to see your face again reminds me that in just a few weeks, we'll be seeing each other in Chicago. So it'll be good.
I can't wait.
Yes, it's our family reunion. It's where we all come back together. So thank you. And thanks everybody for listening. I hope that you're willing to try out a, user generated concept this summer with the helpful suggestions from Erica. And we will see you all next week with another great episode. So thanks for joining us, Erica. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much. Bye.